concerns I have that Tamara Lich, Pat King, and Chris Barber are convoy patsies, is what I'd like to refer to them as. Um, First of all three of them played a large role in the convoy. No question about that. All three of them have dubious backgrounds where they have, you know, uh, videos where they're making, um, inappropriate statements, stuff like that. And that that's one issue. Then the other issue is that they're all tucking in with lawyers and doing what the lawyers are telling them to do. And third, they are three individuals that are charged with um, the the Emergency Act closure of the protest, and their lawyers are telling them, all three of them, not to use a jury, to just use a judge. That's not. Um, I don't think that's in their best interest because if you're dealing with your rights, with these situations, deal with your rights. And if you're dealing with your rights, this would have to be adjudicated by an individual who's appointed by the government and paid for by the government. So you would expect them to be able to, support you if the facts support you. That's putting yourself at a high risk there. Much better to have 12 people who don't have that kind of relationship with the government. You're going to get a much better chance of getting, uh, a valid assessment and response to your case that your rights are violated. This is the primary reason for the jury, and uh, I don't see how that's resolvable. But the main general problem, is that I don't think that this commission is impartial. The judge, Rouleau, was selected by Bill Blair. Actually, the commission was established by Trudeau passing an order in council, and he's not allowed doing that. An order in council has to be the whole cabinet, and he just stepped up and did it himself. And then he had Bill Blair set the commission. And that's a big problem because they're the subjects of the investigation. So why should they be setting up the goddamn process? And then they pick an old time liberal who was appointed by Paul Martin, and he's a contributor to the Liberal Party, like financial contributor. And we shouldn't have to take that kind of risk on something so serious as this. It should be somebody that is clearly independent of the Liberal Party who's investigating the Liberals. So that's number one problem. Then there's all kinds of problems with the structure of it, and they've chosen just a handful of lawyers that are allowed to ask questions. The majority of them so far have been through either the JCC directly, or lawyers that they're paying for are doing all the questioning. And other people that are testifying don't get to have their counsel ask them questions, and they don't get to question other people that are testifying. Big problem. For example, Keith Wilson testified that he believed there was grounds for the government to bring in the Emergency Act. What? And then two things he referred to. He referred to the Rideau Sussex situation. He said that the trucks didn't want to move and that he anticipated they would bring in the Emergency Act because of that. And then he also made a false statement about Coventry, saying that there was a group of ex military people deputizing themselves and they're going to arrest all the police. That was also BS, and that's also creating whatever evidence for the government to bring in the Emergency Act. And they put his testimony right after they cut the deadline for any more submissions. So if anybody has any problems with his testimony, oh well, too bad. The deadline for submissions is past. We've challenged that, and they're loosening up slightly with it, but it's still like, what the hell are they even doing that for in the first place? And to show you the difference, uh, if a client of JCCF is questioned, JCCF gets to ask them the questions, and then JCCSFS gets to ask every other witness questions at the end of their testimony. But my client, Bridget Belton, I couldn't ask her questions. The commission only could ask her questions, so that scoped and limited her statement. And I couldn't ask anybody else any questions. I couldn't examine Keith Wilson, for example. Not allowed. He could cross examine anybody else, but nobody could cross examine him. So, or JCCF at least could cross examine everybody else, and he's affiliated with them. So, and they also defended him. JCCF were worried about some uh, of Bridget's documents, that it might be incriminating to him, and they were all like, "Oh, our client has to be protected." So uh, I don't have a lot of confidence in that process going down. So it looks like they're dropping little tidbits here and here and here to try and, I think, create this story that the convoy attracted um, bad people, or whatever. What do they call it? Extremist people, racists, sexist, whatever, people, and this create and they even were implying that they could be insurrectionists or whatever, with guns and so on. So to create the threat, the need to bring the Emergency Act in, and then I think where they're going to go from there is say, well, there was grounds, so it was okay that they brought it in, but the federal government didn't actually do anything. They just created tools for the police to use. And then where there was excessive use of force, they'll say, well, we didn't tell them to do that. They just did it on their own, so they're responsible for that. So all the shit, it would basically fall back on the police. But if they do establish that there's grounds for the Emergency Act, then somebody has to go down for it. And if you can see, uh, Keith Wilson, who basically was one of the individuals that took over the convoy from the ones that initiated it, and he directed it clearly, like by testimony and by documentation. Or even his own statement confirmed that. Like he got involved almost immediately with a press conference, and Tamara was worried about what she should say, so he just took over, and he was the spokesperson, and he let somebody else speak, and blah blah blah. Well, that's not what lawyers do. If he's a lawyer, he's supposed to be guiding them, giving them feedback about, well, you better not say that or whatever, but not, you must say this, and this is what's going down. But he controlled the message from that point forward, and that makes him a leader, not a lawyer or a representative. But he flips back and forth between the two roles, whatever suits him, and that's like very, I don't know. So uh, I have a big problem with that, and I'm just generally thinking that they're these lawyers and the commission itself and the government, whatever, they're trying to create this, because they started right off the bat. Trudeau started saying, "Oh, these are racists and whatever, people that are coming in, extremists and terrorists." They even used, um, that are coming for this convoy. That's what they laid down, in the press. Picked that up and stirred that shit. And then they need patsies now, and I think those three are patsies. There's also James Bowder, but he's not so vulnerable because he's not sitting under a lawyer's thumb. He's self-representing. He gets legal advice, but he's staying independent. He's asked for a jury, and he's been approved to have a jury. That's going to make a big difference. And also, he doesn't have such a nefarious background as what those three have. So I think they need patsies, and I think those are the three because they're fitting into the groove, like they're tucking into the inner circle and doing whatever whatever directions are coming from Keith Wilson, and whatever rewards there is from that, like they're being represented for free and they're getting representation from the lawsuit for free. uh so they're benefiting. They also seem to be comfortable, financially comfortable, so there may be, I don't know, but there may be. There was some payments made during the convoy bought through JCCF, but I don't know all the details of that, so I'm not going to step into that. But there could be there's incentive for them to go along with the lawyers because there's fear, right? There's fear that I get evicted or get convicted if I don't have a lawyer, and I'll lose all my property or whatever if I'm sued and I don't have a lawyer. So this is free lawyer. So that's one element, but there may also be incentives as well, like financial incentives to be in that to cooperate and to leave themselves in that position. So that's my observations, and Dave Freedom has spoken to all three, and all three say no jury. Our lawyers said we need to go just with a judge, so that's what we're doing, with no real reason why. I shouldn't say no reason. Tamara had said that her lawyer said that they won't get a fair jury in Ottawa, and that's if that's true, then they don't have to get tried in Ottawa. They can get tried in another city in Ontario. It would be relatively easy to move it, and there's not such high emotion in other cities because it didn't affect them. And it didn't affect much of Ottawa anyway, just the downtown of Ottawa. So it's not doesn't have a high negative, you know, impact on anywhere else. Um, and apparently, there was a survey done that was submitted to the House of Commons after the Emergency Act was invoked, and people stated that whether they supported the convoy or didn't support the convoy, they did not support the Emergency Act being invoked. So, to me, that's nonsense that you wouldn't get a fair jury in Ottawa. I think she probably would get a fair jury in Ottawa. But if there's any question about that, if they have any reason or proof to believe that wouldn't be the case, then they can just apply for another venue, but not just like don't have one and have a judge. And why would the judge be untouched by any of the bias that's created because it happened in Ottawa? Because the judge would be from Ottawa. But anyway, I'm really concerned about that. I think that if they do effectively establish that the federal government did have grounds for the Emergency Act, then they're going to need patsies. They're going to need proof that there were people that crossed the line and created danger and blah blah blah. And those three are the target, as far as I can tell. Most of the other charges are being dropped everywhere, but they're still coming at them full bore. So that's it. That's all. And I'm going to sign off now. And just I'd like you to keep your eye on that Preston Manning public inquiry. I expect that's going to be entirely different because it's not government. It's set up by the community, and it looks very professionally organized right now, currently. And Preston Manning, I have a little bit of experience with Preston Manning, like from years ago, three different issues, and all three I admired what he had done, and I think he's a patriot, and I think that he does have our country, the best for our country at heart and in his mind with this project. So have a look at that and nominate people you think would be a good commissioner for that procedure, or yourself, or both. Refer somebody, yourself and somebody else. It's online, the application for it, and and as well, if you have any information that contradicts anybody's evidence that they gave to the commission, apply to the commission for an extension of the deadline. Say that, whatever testimony was after October 31st. Therefore, you need to have an exception to present the information. So that would be affidavits, videos, photos, whatever that contradict any of the evidence that was given. That's really important, because otherwise, if they're able to scope it and narrow what's given, they're able to make an outcome different than what the truth is. So I'm going to close down now, and remember, hashtag we got this.